Hello guys, Colonel Ninny here. Welcome to lesson 3 of How to Fly. In the theory of aerodynamics, there are 3 axes. There's pitch, roll, and yaw. In the last 2 lessons we dealt with pitch and roll. But before we deal with yaw, I want to deal with something that is very important and often overlooked, and that is the trimming of the aircraft. I'll bet you didn't know that you could fly this aircraft just by using the trim control. From lesson 1, you will remember that the airspeed is controlled entirely by the pitch. When we pitch the nose forward, we go faster. When we pitch the nose up, we go slower. And when we use the pitch trim, we can control the airspeed exclusively with that device. You can see here that I'm not using the joystick to push the nose forward or pull it back. I'm just using the trim control wheel. In my setup, I have the pitch control wheel set as the up and down buttons on my keyboard. And using this trim control properly allows me to have perfect control over my airspeed in any configuration of flight. So what is it and how does it work? It's simply an aerodynamic means to trim the aircraft in each one of the axes. On modern aircraft, each control surface will have a trim tab. The BF-109 can only be trimmed in the pitch axis. But instead of having a small trim tab on the elevator surface, it has a stabilator, which means that the whole horizontal stabilizer can be adjusted by the pilot with the trim control. Pilots remember the APT acronym, which is Attitude, Power, Trim. Whenever we change the attitude or the power or both, we need to retrim the aircraft. So we will trim the aircraft for takeoff, we'll trim it for climb, we'll trim it for level flight, we'll trim it for descent, and we'll trim it for landing. So how do you know if it's trimmed? The aircraft is trimmed when you can take your hands off the controls and it will stay where you put it. If the nose pitches down, then you need to trim up slightly. If the nose pitches up, you need to trim down slightly. When it's properly trimmed, you're not fighting the aircraft, it's flying by itself in that configuration. If it's properly trimmed, you won't be fighting the controls to fire your weapons. A properly trimmed aircraft reduces the stresses on the aircraft, and it reduces the stresses on you, the pilot. Of all the habits and skills you can acquire, this is by far the best. As far as how much trim you need, that really depends on the weight, the fuel, the type of aircraft, and what configuration you're in, whether you have flaps down, flaps up, wheels down, etc. During a high-speed attack on a ground target, we need to make sure the aircraft is trimmed properly. The aerodynamic forces at 700 kilometers an hour may not allow you to pull the aircraft out of the dive. Trimming the aircraft in a nose-up attitude at the beginning of the dive will aerodynamically help you to pull it out of the dive so you don't plow into the ground. Practice the attitude, power, trim sequence and then join me in lesson 4. We'll cover yaw control and add more finesse to your flying skills. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, found it helpful, please like it or subscribe, or if there's another topic you'd like me to cover, please